Open the door now. The knock wasn't just loud, it was violent. Repeated thuds rattled the front windows as blue and red flashes smeared across the living room walls. The music cut off mid-chorus. A vinyl plate skipped. Laughter dissolved into silence. Aaliyah's heart pounded. Her heel froze mid-step. Around her, guests exchanged startled glances. Someone near the kitchen whispered, "Is that ... the cops?" Children huddled closer to their parents. An uncle moved to the front window and peeked past the curtain. "There's like 2 cops out there," he said, voice low. "And ... Karen." "Of course. Karen." Again, Aaliyah inhaled slowly, calming the buzz in her chest. The Juneteenth celebration had barely started, and already fear had replaced joy. Her niece clutched her hand. Outside, the banging came again. "Ma'am, this is the police." She turned toward the door, every step deliberate. When she opened it, the night air rushed in. 2 officers, white, young, stern, stood shoulder to shoulder, flanked by Karen, her face twisted with performative concern. Karen pointed past Aaliyah's shoulder. "They've got too many people in there. The music's blaring. It's a peaceful neighborhood. We don't need this kind of ... gathering." The taller officer nodded. "We received reports of a noise disturbance and possible unlawful activity. Mind if we ask you a few questions?" Aaliyah didn't step back. "The music just stopped. We've been here less than 2 hours." Karen huffed. "They were smoking something. And there are cars everywhere. We don't know these people." The other officer looked over Aaliyah's shoulder. "Do you know everyone in attendance?" That question again. She kept her face steady. "It's a family event. Everyone here was invited." Karen smirked. "It's just ... does feel safe." The implication lingered in the air danger. Cloaked in skin-tone ... the officers didn't push back. They didn't question Karen. They just waited, expecting her to explain herself, like she owed them something. Aaliyah stepped onto the porch, letting the screen door fall gently behind her. The night was humid, but her spine stayed tall. "My name is Aaliyah James. I'm the homeowner," she said, voice clear. "And yes, this is a Juneteenth celebration. It's lawful. It's joyful. But this is harassment." The shorter officer shifted. "We're just responding to complaints, ma'am. My neighbor," she nodded toward Karen, "has made several complaints, always when my family gathers. Never when the other block has fireworks or frat reunions." Karen crossed her arms. "Don't make this about race." Aaliyah's brow lifted. "I don't have to. You already did." Behind her, the guests watched, hushed. The celebration had turned into a courtroom, and a judge had shown up with a badge. "We've also had a report about possible drug use," the taller officer said, voice too casual for the weight of the accusation. Aaliyah blinked. "Excuse me?" Karen folded her arms tighter, eyes darting toward the camera phones rising in the crowd. "I saw people smoking something. I couldn't tell what, but it smelled ... off." "You saw people from across the street?" Aaliyah asked, incredulous. The officer pressed. "Do you have anything illegal in the home?" That's when the tension cracked. A guest near the food table pulled out their phone and began filming. "This is an out of line," someone muttered. "You don't get to accuse folks for having a party." Aaliyah looked at the officers squarely. "I work in community services. I organize free tutoring for this zip code. We've done Juneteenth every year, and suddenly it's criminal?" The officer's hand moved toward his belt. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step to the curb. No evidence, no probable cause. Just skin and music and assumption. As the officer reached for her wrist, the sharp sound of a child's scream sliced through the air. "They're taking Auntie." Aaliyah turned. Her niece stood near the steps, face streaked with tears. Tiny fists balled at her sides. The officer hesitated. For a split second, doubt flickered in his expression. But protocol overrode empathy. "Ma'am, don't resist," he muttered, gripping her wrist. "I'm not resisting," Aaliyah said, trying to breathe through the panic tightening in her chest. "I'm asking, what law did I break?" "Around." Her voices rose. "This isn't right. You can't just grab her." More phones were lifted. A chorus of protest swelled. But the handcuffs were out now. Karen leaned against the porch rail, triumphant. Aaliyah's voice wavered. "This is my home. These are my people. What is this?" Another officer moved to separate the crowd. But the air had shifted from celebration to confrontation. A voice rang out from the back firm. "Unbothered? Cool as midnight. She's not the only one hosting this party." Everything paused. Heads turned. The crowd parted instinctively, curiosity stretching into silence. Even the officers paused, confused. Aaliyah's breath caught. Her wrist still in the officer's grip. She froze, not from fear this time, but disbelief. Karen's smug expression faltered. The weight of the moment hung like thunder. Just before the storm breaks, the voice repeated, softer now, but with authority laced in every word. "Is there a problem here, officer?" There she stood. Bayonce, acute. No flash, no filter, no stage lights. Just her hair pulled back, eyes unflinching, dressed like family, not fame. She walked forward slowly, gaze locked on the hand still gripping. Aaliyah's wrist. The officer let go without a word. Karen looked like she'd seen a ghost, and in that frozen, stunned silence, the story was no longer theirs to control. Juneteenth is more than a trend, Aaliyah murmured, carefully placing each flyer on the table. "It's our story, our freedom." Her fingers traced the elegant script she'd designed herself, each word deliberate, every image chosen to honor generations before her. She glanced up, catching the smile from her cousin Maya across the room. "This flyer's going to light up the whole neighborhood," Maya said, teasing. "You sure you don't want Beyoncé to sing at the event?" Aaliyah laughed softly. "One step at a time." Despite the long hours she spent organizing food drives and tutoring kids, this event was her passion. A chance to claim joy publicly, even if the world tried to silence it. Juneteenth deserves more than just a hashtag, she added with quiet conviction. It deserves a celebration no one can ignore. Walking through the worn hardwood floors, Aaliyah ran her hand over the family photos lining the hallway. Her grandparents had built this home with sweat and pride decades ago. Outside, a new neighbor, Karen, stood near her pristine lawn, watering her garden, but glancing over with thinly veiled disdain. The contrast stung. This street had changed. The vibrant families who once filled had been pushed aside by shiny new faces and bigger houses. But Aaliyah belonged here. This was her legacy. She whispered under her breath. "This is my home, and I'm not going anywhere." The doorbell rang, and Aaliyah's younger cousin, Maya, stepped inside, her suitcase in tow. "Mama's feeling better," Aaliyah said softly, glancing toward the living room where her mother rested, a tired but genuine smile lighting her face. "This party, it's not just for the neighborhood," Aja told Maya. "It's for healing." "For us," Maya nodded, understanding the weight behind the celebration. "Tonight, we'll make memories that last." The family's warmth wrapped around the room, a quiet shield against the challenges looming just outside their door. The HOA meeting buzzed with polite smiles and sharper words hidden beneath. Karen spoke first, voice smooth but pointed. "We all want to maintain the neighborhood's charm and standards." Aaliyah bit back the sting. "Our community has always been about inclusion." Karen's eyes flicked cold. "Well, some of us feel certain activities don't quite fit." The coded language dripped like poison. and Aaliyah could feel every eye weighing her differently. She stayed composed, though anger simmered beneath her skin. Being different isn't a crime, Aaliyah said quietly, and neither is celebrating. Our culture. Karen's smirk lingered as the meeting moved on, but the message was clear. That afternoon, Aaliyah found the note taped to her mailbox. Keep the noise down this weekend. Some of us have families. No signature. No apology. Neighbors crossed. The street quickly when she approached, eyes averted like she carried a secret none of them wanted to hear. Each glance felt heavier than the last. She folded the note slowly, the paper crinkling in her hand. Aaliyah exhaled, feeling the cold weight of isolation settle around her once again. Still, the fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. That evening, Aaliyah stood in her yard, stringing delicate lanterns from tree branches. The soft glow stretched across the grass, a promise she whispered to the night. This party will be beautiful, she said, voice steady despite the exhaustion. Even with the cold shoulders, and whispered, judgments. She refused to let fear dim her light. Hope pulsed quietly beneath the surface, ready to ignite. And deep down, Aaliyah knew this celebration was more than a party. It was a statement. Maya held up the note, squinting at the typed words. Please remember, this is a peaceful neighborhood. Keep the noise down this weekend. She rolled her eyes. Classic Karen. All passive-aggressive, but you know what it really means. Aaliyah folded the paper slowly, her jaw tightening. It's a warning wrapped in civility. She'd seen these signs before, coded messages that felt like barbed wire around her. Community. Another reminder they don't want us here, Maya muttered. Aaliyah's fingers traced the words again. This wasn't about noise. It was about control. And she was ready to push back. At the monthly HOA meeting, the room buzzed with forced smiles and careful words. Karen cleared her throat, glancing pointedly at Aaliyah. We all want to maintain neighborhood standards, she said, voice smooth but sharp. It's important that new residents respect the quiet and culture here. Aaliyah didn't flinch. She raised her hand, holding up a freshly printed flyer. This is the Juneteenth celebration I'm organizing. It's about history, community, and healing. The room fell silent. Eyes darted away, uncomfortable with the truth behind her words. A neighbor coughed awkwardly, breaking the pause. Karen's smile tightened, but didn't waver. We simply want peace, she added, her meaning unmistakable. Aaliyah nodded, steady. Peace doesn't mean silence. It means respect for everyone. At the community forum, Aaliyah spoke with passion. Juneteenth marks the day freedom finally reached enslaved people in Texas. It's a celebration of resilience. A middle-aged man interrupted abruptly. Can we focus on neutral topics? Parking issues, potholes, things that affect everyone. Aaliyah smiled tightly, refusing to be sidelined. History shapes our present. Ignoring it doesn't help anyone. The man shrugged, unconvinced. The subtle dismissal stung worse than any insult. She could feel the weight of rejection settle around her like a shadow. Yet, she stood firm knowing this fight was just beginning. Aaliyah was arranging folding chairs when a police cruiser rolled down the street. The officers stepped out, badges gleaming under the bright sun. We received an anonymous call about suspicious activity here, one said casually. Aaliyah's heart sank, but she kept her voice steady. We're just setting up for a family gathering. Her cousin Maya leaned close, whispering. Karen's watching again. Aaliyah glanced toward the house across the street. A curtain shifted, and a familiar glare met her eyes. No music playing. No crowd gathered yet, she added, eyes fixed on the officers. They nodded, but lingered, their presence a silent warning. The invisible tension thickened, reminding her this neighborhood wasn't welcoming. Yet, Aaliyah refused to let fear silence her. That evening, sitting on the porch with Maya, The air felt heavy. "They're making it clear," Maya said quietly, voice edged with frustration. Aaliyah stared at the fading light. "Let's show them joy anyway," she replied softly. Her words hung in the air, a small but powerful act of defiance. Even surrounded by suspicion, they would claim their space. The fight wasn't just for one day, it was for every day after. Adjusting. The Juneteenth banner. Aaliyah felt a chill. Across the street, curtains twitched, eyes peered, waiting. Her hands trembled slightly, but her smile never faltered. She knew the scrutiny was relentless every moment of the test, before the celebration even began. The battle lines were drawn, and Aaliyah was ready to stand tall, proud, and unyielding. "Hands where I can see them now." The officer barked, shoving Aaliyah hard against the cold metal of the squad car. Her breath caught in her throat. The gold sequins on her dress shimmered unevenly under the flashing red and blue lights, streaked now with smudged makeup from panic and disbelief. Guests froze, some silent, others trembling, and many already pulling out phones. Tears welled up as voices cracked, calling her name desperately. "Stop! This is a celebration, not a crime." A young man shouted, voice thick with emotion. But officers pressed on, their grip firm, ignoring the growing crowd's protests. Aaliyah's heart pounded, not just with fear, but with a rising surge of injustice. This wasn't a random check. It was a public spectacle, a calculated humiliation broadcast, under the harsh glare of authority. The tension rippled through the gathering as more phones lifted, recording every moment. Social media cameras were. Leave this moment wasn't going to fade quietly. Behind the officers, Karen stood rigid, voice straining with forced concern. "They don't look like they belong here," she said sharply, eyes flicking to every black guest. I swear, I saw drugs being exchanged." Her words spilled out, desperate to sound factual, but loaded with prejudice. Aaliyah opened her mouth to respond, but Karen's accusation drowned her out. The crowd tensed, whispers of disbelief spreading like wildfire. Karen's face was flushed, her concern unraveling into something raw and biting. "You're strangers," she spat, "coming in and making a scene in my neighborhood." The officers nodded, not questioning her claim, their silence speaking volumes. Guests exchanged anxious looks, the weight of systemic racism pressing down. Aaliyah took a shaky breath. This was no longer just a party. It was a battleground where racial profiling masqueraded as law enforcement. One officer seized Aaliyah's arms tightly, ignoring her protests. "This is my home, my family," she cried, voice cracking under the strain. Behind her, her young niece sobbed, clutching a cousin's hand. "Please," Aaliyah pleaded, "you have no right to treat us like criminals." A guest stepped forward, raising a phone to capture the scene. "Stay back," an officer warned sharply, silencing the crowd's rising anger. Her dignity was unraveling, publicly stripped away, beneath flashing lights and the relentless hum of recording devices. Tears welled, but Aaliyah held her head high, refusing to be broken. "This isn't justice," she whispered fiercely. "It's humiliation disguised as authority." The party had turned into a nightmare, a cruel display of how racism weaponizes power against black joy. Karen's facade cracked, her voice rising like a storm. "They always make it about race." She screamed at a guest filming the ordeal, her face twisted with frustration and hate. The crowd gasped. This moment shattered the illusion of civility, no longer hiding behind polite concern. Karen revealed her true colors, a blatant refusal to see black happiness as anything but a threat. Phones clicked louder, live streams spreading the scene to thousands. "This is racism," murmured one guest. "Right here, right now." The officer glanced uncertainty, the weight of Karen's words hanging heavy in the air. The tide was turning. and the community's eyes were wide open. Suddenly, a calm voice cut through the chaos. She's not the only one hosting this party. Heads snapped toward the sound. The officer's hand paused midair, hesitating just before placing the cuffs. The crowd parted as the source of the voice stepped forward, commanding attention with quiet authority. Tension thickened. Everyone waited. A moment, hope flickered amidst the storm. Beyoncé, acute, emerged slowly, every movement measured and confident. Her silver-sequined gown caught the lights, but she seemed untouched by their glare. "Do you want to see the permit?" she asked, voice steady and clear. Karen's face paled, lips parting in shock. The officers froze, caught off guard by the sudden presence and undeniable power before them. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Is that?" Beyoncé held up the official papers calmly, eyes locked on the lead officer. "This is a lawful celebration," she said, voice unwavering. Her presence alone shifted the atmosphere, from fear to fierce determination. This was no ordinary party. It was a stand against injustice. Beyoncé's voice softened, but carried weight. "You're about to arrest a woman in front of her family for being black and joyful." She didn't yell. There was no need. Her calm confrontation cut through the noise. Speaking truth to power. The crowd fell silent, phones capturing every word. "This isn't just about a party," Beyoncé continued. "It's about protecting the right to exist happily in your own home." Her words echoed, immortalized in countless live streams. That the moment marked a turning point. Justice, no longer silent, no longer unseen. The lead officer stammered, voice faltering. I didn't know." Karen's shoulders sagged as she tried to backtrack. I didn't mean." But the damage was done. The world was watching. Silence replaced control. Power slipped away as accountability loomed. This was just the beginning. Beyoncé's voice cut through the tension like a clear bell. "She's the reason I came here today." Without hesitation, she took Aaliyah's arm gently, guiding her away from the squad car and toward the porch the flashing cameras caught. Every step as Beyoncé's calm presence shifted the mood instantly. The officer's hand wavered. The cold metal of the handcuffs unclipping softly. "Put those away," Beyoncé said quietly, but with authority, eyes locked on the lead cop. Aaliyah's chest rose and fell, tears shimmering in her eyes, as dignity returned to her stance. Her voice, barely above a whisper, held steady. "Thank you." Around them, the crowd exhaled, tension easing, but the fire inside swelling. Every phone was pointed their way, capturing the reversal, a moment where power bent toward justice. Beyoncé's intervention wasn't just saving Aaliyah, it was rewriting the narrative in real time. Someone's phone buzzed. A guest quickly uploaded the clip. Aaliyah in gold, Beyoncé beside her. The officer froze in mid-action. The caption read, "They tried to arrest a black woman for throwing a Juneteenth party," until Beyoncé stepped out. Within minutes, the video exploded across TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Influencers and activists shared it rapidly. Millions tuned in. Hearts pounding. Comments poured in. "This is why we keep fighting. Black joy can't be policed. Justice served." The story rippled beyond the neighborhood, sparking a digital movement. For the first time, the party wasn't just a local celebration. It became a symbol of resistance broadcast worldwide. Hashtags trended. Hashtag let us live. Hashtag party while black. Hashtag Queen BSTANDs up. Journalists dug deeper. Stories of racial profiling surfaced across cities. A black father's comment hit hard. "I saw my daughter in Aaliyah. I cried." Celebrities riposted, amplifying the call for change. National news shifted its gaze to the quiet neighborhood. Once overlooked. The injustice that started with a party had ignited a broader conversation about systemic racism and the right to public celebration. People are waking up, a young activist wrote. We won't be silenced anymore. The power of social media turned a moment of shame into a rallying cry. Aaliyah's fight was now everyone's fight. News vans lined the block, their crews pressing for answers. But Karen was nowhere to be found. Her once smug lawn now stood silent, her windows curtained tight. The same voice from the viral video, her clipped accusation. They always make it about race, looped relentlessly on screens. It became a symbol of denial and hypocrisy. Neighbors whispered, pointing fingers. While reporters taped the eerie stillness, the public spotlight exposed not just a single act, but the hidden discomfort festering beneath the neighborhood's polished surface. The silence behind those drawn curtains spoke volumes of retreat into. Shame as accountability took hold. The police department faced mounting pressure. The chief appeared on camera, voice grave. We are reviewing protocol and deeply regret the incident. Activists demanded reforms beyond words calling for real change in policing and racial bias. Behind the scenes, the officers involved were placed on administrative leave, a rare but necessary step. Aaliyah remained quiet, choosing to let the global outcry speak for her. Her silence was strength, a refusal to be defined by injustice. The tides of accountability were shifting, signaling that this was no longer business as usual. The next day, neighbors began to show up, different faces than before. An older white woman knocked gently. I'm sorry for not speaking up sooner. Teenagers from nearby blocks carried signs. We stand with Aaliyah. Flowers arrived in small clusters, placed carefully on the porch steps. Aaliyah watched in stunned silence as the porch filled with allies. For once, no one was hiding behind closed doors or veiled glances. This was a moment of healing, fragile, but real. The community that once turned away was beginning to stand together, standing on her steps, surrounded by family, friends, and newfound supporters. Aaliyah felt the weight of the moment. She looked out at the faces, strangers and neighbors, alike united by a shared desire for justice. Her voice barely a whisper. She said, "This is what resistance looks like." The gold sequins on her dress caught the morning sun, not as a target, but as a crown. This was more than a celebration. It was a declaration, and the fight was far from over. "Thank you all for having me," Aaliyah said, her voice steady yet filled with conviction as the podcast host smiled. "This isn't just my story," she continued. "It's the story of so many black families who face suspicion simply for living and celebrating their culture." Across news outlets and talk shows, Aaliyah's words sparked conversations on racial profiling and the right to exist joyfully in public spaces. Her calm eloquence became a beacon for those often unheard. "I'm not here for fame," she told one interviewer, "but to give voice to the everyday experiences that rarely make headlines." From local radio to national television, her message spread a rallying cry demanding respect, justice, and the freedom to celebrate black joy without fear. Reports surfaced quickly. Journalists uncovered that Karen had filed multiple baseless complaints over the years: noise, trespassing, suspicious activity, always targeting black neighbors. Former residents stepped forward, recounting similar experiences of racial intimidation. One elderly neighbor said, "She always found reasons to make us feel unwelcome." Karen's face appeared on screens nationwide, a stark symbol of weaponized whiteness used to police communities of color. Her pattern of harassment ignited widespread outrage, shining a spotlight on how systemic racism often operates quietly but persistently within neighborhoods. The neighborhood association could no longer ignore the mounting criticism. In a public statement, the HOA admitted, "We failed to protect our residents from bias and harassment." Members promised immediate action, passing anti-harassment policies aimed at preventing future racial targeting. "Transparency and accountability will be our priorities moving forward," a spokesperson declared. Mandatory bias training was announced for leadership and staff. Community members watched cautiously, but with hope. Finally, a step toward justice within the structures, meant to safeguard their rights and dignity. The documentary launched with a powerful statement: joy is a form of resistance. Beyoncé's raw 12-minute film blended the viral party footage with intimate interviews from Aaliyah and Black elders who shared the deep roots of Juneteenth. The project went viral almost instantly, amassing millions of views. Comments poured in praising its honesty and strength. This film captures the fight for Black joy and dignity. One viewer wrote, "It wasn't just a story, it was a movement, immortalized in art and shared across generations." Motivated by her experience, Aaliyah founded Front Porch Freedom, a nonprofit dedicated to defending Black joy in public spaces. "Our mission is to protect against racial profiling, provide community healing, and drive policy change," she explained during the first press conference. The organization's initial project, a legal fund to support victims of false 911 calls and harassment. Aaliyah embraced this work with fierce purpose, channeling pain into advocacy. Her efforts inspired others to stand up, transforming a personal battle into a collective force for justice and healing. Weeks later, the porch was alive again, not with fear, but with celebration. Neighbors from all backgrounds brought food, music, and smiles. Children danced where police once stood, laughter echoing through the street. Aaliyah greeted old and new friends alike. Hugs exchanged freely. The same space that had been a battleground now blossomed into a sanctuary of unity. The atmosphere pulsed with joy, healing, and a renewed sense of community. It was a declaration. Black joy belongs everywhere. In the heart of the gathering, Beyoncé stood without a microphone, her voice rising in a soulful, a cappella rendition of Freedom. No spotlight was needed. Her raw, reverent song filled the night. Aaliyah held her mother's hand, tears streaming quietly down her cheeks. Around them, the crowd listened, breath held. When the last note faded, applause erupted, not just for the music, but for the collective healing that had begun. This was more than a celebration. It was a powerful reminder that freedom and joy could never be silenced. Have you or someone you love ever been targeted just for being who you are? Maybe you felt the sting of unfair judgment or the weight of racial profiling. Drop your story in the comments. Your voice matters here. If this made your blood boil, hit that like button. Every tap helps flood the algorithm with truth, pushing back against silence and injustice. Share this story with someone who needs to see it. Protecting Black joy starts with amplifying Black stories, because visibility is the first step toward change. And don't forget to subscribe to support more stories that speak truth and spark justice. This isn't entertainment. This is empowerment.